All right, President Trump is trying to keep a focus on immigration heading into the 2020 election, but attempts to bring his party along has had some mixed results. A Politico story details the administration's problems in getting even Republican support for an immigration bill it unveiled back in March. The author of that piece, Anita Kumar, joins me now. Good to see you, Anita.
Hi, how are you?
So I'm good. So let's talk about this. What's the resistance? This is sort of, I think, for a lot of people going to be surprising that President Trump is actually meeting some resistance within his own party over this issue.
Right, because the actual bill that they're talking about is not sort of what people would expect. This is a merit-based proposal. So what that means is it doesn't change the number of immigrants coming into the United States. It just changes the reason they're coming in. So if they're skilled or educated, they can come in, but if they're just coming in because they have a family member here, they can't. But why Republicans and a lot of conservatives, the president's base, don't like it is because it doesn't reduce the numbers. They want to reduce the number of immigrants in the United States, and this keeps it status quo.
So a lot of pundits and analysts, Anita, as you know, have branded the Trump administration as hostile to immigrants. And certainly we just did a story on the zero tolerance policy that was implemented. It has had real profound impact on human beings who are just looking for a better life here in this country. But this plan, this proposal that the president has, ultimately would increase the number of immigrants in the United States. So is that why some lawmakers are resisting it? Lawmakers within the president's own party, that they see him perhaps as being pro-immigration? I know it sounds like sort of counterintuitive.
Well, you know, if you look back at all the things that the president has said in the last 3 years, he has talked really tough, as you're mentioning, a lot of policies, tough policies that you guys have talked about. But there have been times where he's talked about treating immigrants with heart and, being, that sort of thing. And so that's what they're not looking at. It's not that they don't want to treat them with heart, but they want to crack down on immigration. They want to make the numbers smaller instead of larger, or even keep it the same. So the big criticism of this bill is really that it keeps the numbers the same, and also it doesn't use E-Verify. So that's a program that employers, big companies can use to verify someone's in the country legally. It does mention it in the bill, but it doesn't make it mandatory, and that's something that conservatives have long wanted, and they have not been able to get that through Congress.
All right, let's pivot to another story that you wrote about the border wall, the great big beautiful wall, as the president likes to call it. The White House says the border wall will be up in time for the election. You spoke to Jared Kushner about this. How are they speeding up construction?
I did. I talked to him on Friday, and if you'll remember, this is obviously one of the president's biggest promises that he talked all about in 2016. He's still talking about that on the campaign trail, and there was some skepticism that they would get this done. But now Jared Kushner is telling us that he will get this done at least 450 miles. And the biggest way that this is happening, of course, is that the president last year declared a state of emergency at the border. And remember, that was very controversial. This happened after that long record-breaking shutdown of the federal government over border wall funding. And so what that has done is given him billions of dollars, over $13 billion to build this wall, and he couldn't have done it without those, those funds.
That's a good point. So Mexico, I guess Mr. Kushner said that Mexico, or it's implied that Mexico is no longer paying for this wall. That was also part of the promise that the president made to his supporters, right? That he was going to build this wall and that Mexico was going to pay for it. I'm guessing that's not happening anymore because the president has invoked this emergency declaration, which has allowed him to bypass Congress. And some people not only have problems with it, Anita, as you know, some in Congress believe that it's illegal.
That's right. I mean, the president has been challenged on this in the courts, but so far, he has been full steam ahead and he's been allowed to do that. But really, they could not have done this, or they couldn't do it in the future here without that emergency declaration. So it's very controversial, but so far he's been able to do it. And even Republicans on Capitol Hill were not sure that this was the right way to go. They thought he should have gotten the funds through the regular appropriations process, but it just wasn't working with Democrats in charge of the House.
Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf said this morning on Fox News, Anita, I don't know if you've seen this, that the administration will waive several federal contracting laws. Has this been done before?
It has been done before, but not for procurement, so not for contracts. It's been done for environmental review reasons in the past, so they waived the environmental reviews. And President Bush did this, the second President Bush, and President Trump has done this. But what hasn't been done is it hasn't been done for contracts. So you can bet that it will immediately be, Democrats will immediately take this to court. But so far, they have been able to use this 2005 law. And this is one of the ways, you asked how they were doing this. Obviously, they need the money, but this is also one of the ways to make it faster. The president very much wants to get this done in time for the election so he can say that he made good on this promise.
And just will remind our viewers that it's been reported that the cost of this wall, which is being funded, as you pointed out, Anita, entirely by the United States government, as opposed to Mexico, is some costs are $30 million per mile in southern Texas, $30 million per mile in Texas. My question is this new wall that's being built, Anita, or is it merely replacing some existing barriers, as was the case with some of the initial border wall stretches?
Yeah, that's a great question. What Jared Kushner said is that they're going to meet this deadline, their self-imposed deadline of 450 miles in 4 places along the border that are where most immigrants try to cross over. It's important to remember that the wall, or excuse me, the border is actually over 2,000 miles, so it's not going to be the whole length of the border. And yes, last year, at the end of last year, when DHS officials told us that there had been almost, but not quite, 100 miles erected, most of that, they don't like to say this, but one question, they admit most of that was already there and it had been broken down. So this was replacing that wall. What they are trying to do as they go forward with this new money is to actually build new walls, so places that there isn't a barrier now.
And again,
so it's a mixture. Yeah,
it's a mixture. We should also point out that that the authorities continue to find miles and miles of tunnels under stretching 2 countries, the United States and Mexico, where drug dealers are still pushing their product into the United States. In some cases, these tunnels start in Mexico and end up in a parking lot in Arizona. Part of the reason why the president wanted to build this wall, you'll recall, Anita, everybody will recall that moment he came down the escalator in Trump Tower, was because Mexico was bringing in drugs. They're still doing that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you can argue how effective it's been. If you talk to the president, he'll tell you, oh, the numbers have gone down of border crossers, and he's absolutely right. But there are other reasons for that. Obviously the wall's not up, so we can't say that it's completely because of the wall. Some of that's seasonal and other things, other factors. So, the numbers have gone down for several months in a row, but it's debatable whether this is related to this barrier.
All right. Anita Kumar with some great reporting there. Thank you, Anita, as always.
Sure. Thank you.